2023 general elections. A lot of questions are coming up. Of course, Nigerians are being very anxious and inquisitive to know what the 2023 election will be, especially questions that borders on the CVR exercise that ended up last month, the 31st of July, and also questions that borders on the readiness of INEC, especially with the new Electoral Act. Also questions that borders on insecurity. How well will Nigerians be secure in the poll? So these are questions that we're bringing to the table. In an exclusive interview with the National INEC Commissioner for Voter Education and Information, Barrister Festus Okoye. Join. For advert placement, you can call the number on your screen.
And you can visit our website at www.7fm.tv.
7TV Nigeria.
7TV. 7TV. It's all about you.
The report that INEC has already 96.2 million voters already. So I want you to give us a detailed information on, or perhaps a breakdown of the figure.
Well, as of today, going into the 2019 general election, we went into that particular election with a total registered voter population of 84 million. Now, we've just completed the continuous voters registration exercise. And from the figures we have in relation to the exercise, those who have completed their registration stood at 12,298,944. Now, this figure has to be subjected to a cleanup exercise using our ABIS to remove double and multiple registrants. Then thereafter, we are supposed to also print the register and display for claims and objections. It is after the display of the voters register for claims and objections that we will now have the complete figure of the total number of registered voters that will go into the 2023 general election. So as of today, we cannot give a definitive answer relating to the number of persons that will be on the voters register. Our projection is that going into the 2023 general election, there is a possibility that we'll go into the election with around 95 million registered voters.
So if I'm to get you correctly, okay, let me talk about the 84 million that we had in 2019.
Yes.
Are those ones ready, or are they on ground? Like the voters, have they been distributed to the people already? Like those, are those numbers the, let me say, eligible voters that we have on ground?
Now, getting into the 2019 general election, we had a total of 84 million registered voters. Okay. These are voters that are already registered, who already have their permanent voters card, and who are eligible to vote. Okay. Now, you will also realize that we've had some off-season governorship elections. We had off-season governorship election in Edo. We had off-season governorship election in Anambra. We had off-season governorship election in Ondo. We've had off-season governorship election in Ekiti and off-season governorship election in Osun. During this particular period, we also did CVR. And going into those elections, we printed the permanent voters cards of those who registered between the 28th day of June 2021 and the time we completed the CVR in Ekiti and in Osun states. So we have to add that number to the 84 million. So the implication is that we, as of today, we have maybe close to 85 million registered voters. Now, when we complete this cleanup exercise, we will now add this figure to the 85 million registered voters. And then that's why we are saying that at the end of the day, we may have around 95 million eligible voters for the 2023 general election.
Okay, first, those that have been registered, is about 12 point something million, like you said.
Yes.
Okay, added to the
those who have completed their registration. Yes.
Okay.
So there's also a possibility that out of these 12 million, that there are some who are multiple and double registrants. Okay. So when we finish our cleaning up exercise, we will remove the double and multiple registrants from this particular figure before we now get the actual number of voters who are legally registered in Nigeria and the actual number that we are going to print their permanent voters cards. All multiple and double registrants will not have a permanent voters card of the Independent National Electoral Commission. The implication is that they are part of the 84 million voters already registered. What they did is that they either registered again or registered again and again. And we are going to remove their second or third registrations and leave their previous registration as valid.
So INEC projection now is that after all of this cleanup is done, we could likely have about 95 million voters.
Exactly.
INEC National Chairman saying something as regards to that. All right. So this figure that you have did it fall below? Was that what INEC emphasized to have? Did it fall go above expectation or below?
Well, as an electoral management body, we do projections. Okay. We projected that there's a possibility that around 20 million Nigerians are going to participate in this exercise. And our projection is that these 20 million will include those who are new registrants. That is those who have never registered before and those who have turned 18. Our projection also includes those who are going to carry out transfers from one state to the other, or from one local government to the other, or from one registration area to the other, or from one polling unit to the other. It also includes those who have lost their PVCs. It also includes those whose PVCs have been damaged or defaced. And it also includes people who may want to correct one thing or the other in their permanent voters' cards. That was our projection. And that was why we spaced out this process to a period of 1 year to enable us handle over 20 million persons who may want the services of the Independent National Electoral Commission during this CVR process.
So far the projection, if I would say it actually fall below, because what we have is about 12 million, like you said, but yes, the projection was about 20 million.
Exactly.
Okay. So the whole process, did it satisfy? Is INEC satisfied with the whole process? The voters turnout, I mean, people coming out to register. Was the commission satisfied with the whole process that went on?
Yes, a lot of positives were recorded, and there were also a lot of drawbacks. Okay. In terms of the positives, we prepared well. We planned and planned well, and we projected and we also projected well. And we gave Nigerians a period of 1 year for people to just stroll into our registration centers and get registered. That was our planning. And we also trained our officers and trained them well in terms of how to handle our IVED machines for purposes of registration of voters. We also deployed thermal printers and fingerprint scanners for the purposes of this process. And we not only deployed to our state offices, we also deployed to local government offices, and we also deployed to the 8,809 registration areas of the country on a rotational basis. So we are satisfied with this. And we are also elated at the fact that because of the work we have done, because of our input into technology in the delivery of electoral services, many Nigerians now believe that when they vote, their votes will count. So there was a new resurgence, a new energy around the Independent National Electoral Commission, because people believe that we have the capacity to conduct free, fair, transparent, and inclusive election.
Okay.
But the drawback is that there were security challenges in some of the states of the Federation and in also some of the local governments. And that was why we adopted the policy of roll out and roll back. When we roll out and there are challenges, we roll back to our state and local government offices. So security was one big issue. The second issue has to do with the attitude of the Nigerian people in waiting to the last minute before carrying out some services or before doing certain things. Sometimes we register a single individual in a local government office in a day. But suddenly, when it was 2 weeks to the terminal period, 10,000 people will descend on one registration center. And that does not make for planning. That also destabilized a lot of things and led to a situation where we had to grant an additional 1 month to enable people to register. And despite that, there were few individuals that could not register. And that is really, really unfortunate, because we made our services available and spread it out in such a way that people can just roll in and register.
For advert placement, you can call the number on your screen.
And you can visit our website at www.7fm.tv.
7TV Nigeria.
7TV. 7TV. It's all about you.
Okay, I like the fact that you mentioned an additional 1 month, because it was supposed to expire June.
Yes, on the 30th day of June, 2022.
30th day of June, and then it was extended, an additional 1 month was extended. Okay.
Yes.
But we also learned that there's a coalition of about 70 CSO, that are civil society organization, demanding for another 2-month extension. I want to know, of course, what INEC is doing. Is there any consideration by INEC to look into that? About 70 coalition of CSO who want an extension, because you said that INEC is satisfied with the whole process, despite the little hitches that we had. But the 70 CSO seems to represent maybe Nigerians, because they could have actually pick up this from the complaints of some Nigerians, all right, for an extension. Is there any consideration or plan by INEC to look into that demand?
The CVR has been suspended, and that suspension is irreversible. It will only be reversed after the conduct of the 2023 general election. Constitutionally, the Independent National Electoral Commission is the only agency, the only commission, and the only organ that has been given the exclusive right and the exclusive responsibility of registering voters. The Constitution says that only the Commission can arrange and conduct the registration of persons qualified to vote, and prepare, maintain, and revise the register of voters for the purpose of any election under the Constitution. Now, there is no provision of the Constitution, and there's no provision of the law that says that the Commission must conduct CVR ad infinitum. Section 19, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act makes it mandatory that after the CVR, the Commission must display the voters' register for claims and objections in the 774 local government areas of the country and in the 8,809 registration areas of the country for claims and objections. In other words, if somebody's name has not been properly spelled, the person can complain. If somebody who has registered has his or her name omitted, the person can complain. If somebody's age has not been properly captured, the person can complain. And Section 19, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act says that this process should go on for a period of 7 days. And thereafter, the Commission will have a period of 14 days to effect the corrections. And the same section says that this must take place not later than 90 days before the election. Not only that, Section 13, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act also makes it mandatory that those who want to effect transfer must also apply and effect their transfer not later than 90 days before the election. The same thing is found in Section 18, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act, to the effect that if you want to replace your PVC, this must also be done not later than 90 days to the conduct of an election. Now, I'm a lawyer, and some of our colleagues have been citing Section 9, subsection 6 of the Electoral Act, which says that the registration of voters, the updating of the voters register, and the revision of voters register shall stop not later than 90 days to the conduct of election. If you stop the voters registration process not later than 90 days, and you stop the display of voters register not later than 90 days, if you read it literally, the implication is that you cannot display the voters register. So when the law uses not later than, what the law is saying is that we can do it earlier, but not later than 90 days. And the lawmakers were very careful in their choice of words. This is because they want us to clean up everything, not later than the period provided in Section 9, subsection 6 of the Electoral Act. In other words, they want us to finish the CVR. They want us to clean up the CVR and remove double and multiple registrants. They also want us to display the voters register for claims and objections. Not only that, they also want us to print these cards and also make these cards available in the states and local government offices for people to collect. It will be an exercise in futility to keep on registering people up to November. And then when we get to November, we won't have time to clean up the voters register. We won't have time to do claims and objections. We won't have time to print the voters register, to print the permanent voters cards. We won't have time to get people to come and collect these voters cards. And if these things are not done, the implication is that those people cannot vote in the 2020 general election. So it becomes a complete exercise in futility. So I believe that this commission has done well in giving a 1-year period within which this registration will take place. For this period, a staff is out there in the field, and that staff has to be paid transport allowance. That staff has to be paid DTA. That staff has to be paid hazard allowance for 1 year. This has to be accounted for. So, it is not as simple as people are looking at it. Moreover, this commission must prepare for the conduct of the 2023 election. And preparing for the conduct of a general election where 95 million Nigerians will vote is not a tea party. We must procure sensitive and non-sensitive materials. So, in other words, the commission must audit its state offices, audit its local government offices, and also audit its zonal stores to check shortfalls in terms of ballot papers, ballot boxes, to check shortfalls in terms of voting cubicles, and also check shortfalls in terms of non-sensitive materials and procure them. Some of these materials are not procured locally. Moreover, we have over 176,000 polling units. The implication is that we must procure at least 200,000 beavers for all these polling units. Because of COVID-19 pandemic, some of the production units outside the country are not producing at full capacity. And you are not the only one that want their services. So you must place your order and place your order on time. And these things have to come in. We have to print 95 million ballot papers for presidential election. We have to print 95 million ballot papers for senatorial elections. We have to print 95 million ballot papers for election to the House of Reps. We have to print 95 million ballot papers for state assembly election. And because we have 28 governorship election, let us project that we are going to print 75 million ballot papers. These are ballot papers excluding result sheets, excluding all the other forms that we normally print. In September, the political parties will start their campaigns. We have to monitor those campaigns. for the 2023 general election, we are going to deploy over 1 million ad hoc staff. We have to harvest this ad hoc staff from NYC and also from students of federal tertiary institutions. We have to profile them. Not only profiling them, we have to also train them and get them deployed. We have to also get to the National Union of Road Transport Workers and get sufficient number of vehicles that we move our personnel and materials to these over 176,000 polling units, that we move them to the over 8,809 registration areas, and also move them to the over 774 local government areas of the country. So there's a lot the commission is doing and will be doing. So CVR is not the only function that has been given to the Independent National Electoral Commission under the electoral legal framework. So there's so much we need to do. And those who are calling for extension need to understand the trajectory of the electoral process and its dynamics, and then call themselves to order.
All right, what this means for Nigerians who are agitating or who are still having hope is that everything has been sealed and stamped, no more extension for anything. Even the agitation of the CSO is nowhere, is going nowhere.
The point I'm making is that anybody who has not been registered during this particular period should be patient. Immediately after the 2023 general election, the CVR will open and those people will have an opportunity of registering. And when that opportunity presents itself, people should not wait to the last minute before taking advantage of this type of opportunity. It is this waiting to the last minute that creates challenges for the Independent National Electoral Commission, creates challenges for the process, creates challenges for the security agencies, and also creates challenges for proper planning of processes and procedures.
Okay, that seems to be a lot of work for INEC. Let's look at, we understand that there are about 11 million online registrants who were not able to complete the physical registration because of, and then we saw the move by Sarah to sue INEC for that. So we want to get an understanding of that. Was the fault from INEC for those registrants not to be able to complete their registration, or whose fault is it? Let's get an understanding into that.
Well, in relation to the matter filed by Serap, Serap went to court, got an injunction against the Independent National Electoral Commission to the effect that we should not end the voters' registration process on the 30th day of June 2022. The matter went to hearing. Judgment was delivered. The court, the Federal High Court, affirmed the exclusive right and the exclusive jurisdiction of the Independent National Electoral Commission to register voters. And the matter was struck out. Now, you talked about an imaginary 11 million people who have not been able to register. I call that imaginary because people need to have an understanding of what has happened. It was the Independent National Electoral Commission that created an online portal for pre-registration. For pre-registration. In other words, when you complete the processes in our portal, you must still go physically for us to capture your biometrics in terms of your fingerprints and in terms of your facials. During the first and second quarter of registration, the first and second quarter, the first quarter started on the 28th day of June 2021, and the first and second quarter ended on the 14th day of January 2022. When we cleaned up the data during that particular period, 1.8 million of those who did pre-registration were Nigerians in diaspora. And our presumption is that some of them registered thinking that there's a possibility that they can come home during this December period and complete their biometrics. And it never happened. So these 11 million people we are talking about, those who are in diaspora, who did their pre-registration and could not complete, are part of this number. Secondly, those who did transfer are part of this number because their slips have not been given to them. If you look at section 13, I think, of the Electoral Act. Section 13 of the Electoral Act deals with the issue of transfer. So due registrants are different from those who have sought for transfer. It says, Section 13, subsection 1, says a person who before the election is a resident in a constituency other than the one in which he or she was registered may apply to the resident electoral commissioner of the state where he or she is currently resident for his or her name to be entered on the transferred voters list for the constituency. Then subsection 2 of section 13 says an application under subsection 1 shall be accompanied by a copy of the applicant's voter's card and shall be made not less than 90 days before the date of an election in the constituency in which the applicant is registered. Then it goes further to say the resident electoral commissioner to whom an application is made under this section shall cause the applicant's name to be entered in the transferred voters list if he or she is satisfied that the applicant is resident in a polling unit, in a polling area in the constituency and is registered in another constituency. He says, whenever an electoral officer on the direction of a resident electoral commissioner enters the name of any person on the transfer voters list for his or her constituency, he shall A. assign that person to a polling station or a polling area in his or her constituency and indicate in the list the polling area or polling station to which that person is assigned. B. issue the person with a new voter's card and retrieve his or her previous voter's card. And C. send a copy of the entry to the electoral officer of the constituency where the person whose name has been so entered was originally registered, and upon receipt of his entry, that electoral officer shall delete the name of the person from his voters list. So this 11 million you are talking about, these persons are part of that 11 million because the processes for their transfer has not been completed. It is when their processes for their transfer has been completed that we will now issue a slip to them and then schedule them for a new permanent voters card. The third issue you need to know, some people started online and abandoned online and went and completed physically. So those people are also here. So that's what I'm saying. That is 11. This 11 million people are bandying about. It's a phantom 11 million. People must allow the Independent National Electoral Commission at the appropriate time to bring out the exact statistics in relation to what has happened, and not to be bandying around the figure of 11 million as those who have been disenfranchised.